Hey guys, welcome back to Aussie Wristwatch. I'm Jessica Liley and today we are continuing our little series on dive watches. But a couple of things first. Wrist check. I've popped on, which I just finished a review on. I do think that this is winning in the poll, so it's going to be given away, but it's the Panzera Pro Diver from their marine range. And yep, I've been enjoying this watch. I thought it was fitting just to throw it on for one of these videos, just to give it another run around the block, so to speak, before I most likely have to give it to someone. But yeah, so also do me a favor, please hit the like button on this video. I'm getting in early because we all have attention spans which are terrible, and also if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Both of those things help me out immensely with the YouTube algorithm gods. Yes. Today we are going to go through the $5,000 to $20,000 dive watch list. Again, by no means a comprehensive list, but a pretty good one at that. Okay, let's get cracking, shall we? First watch, Tudor Black Bay. Yep, we're gonna go there, guys. Straight on to a Tudor. So it's a relatively modest history as a dive watch. It was released about 10 years ago, but you know, it's still a classic. It's backed by Rolex. Some people call Tudor the poor man's Rolex. I think that's being a little unfair. But you know, they are a solid Swiss-made watch at an amazing price point, generally speaking, for what they are. So this one is basically taking the good old Rolex Submariner to its roots. It's got a lack of a crown guard. It's got a red bezel triangle, old school riveted bracelet, and vintage lume. Look, the whole thing has vintage charm. I actually really love this watch. I don't know whether I'd actually ever buy one unless I had an unlimited supply of money to buy whatever watch I wanted. Then yes, this would be in the collection, but no, not right now. Look, if you want something different, it also comes in red, blue, or green. And it's 41mm case, so it might be slightly big, all in metal, but I don't know. I think it's a pretty good size. And it is about 5,600 Australian. It's about 4,000 US. So give or take on the good old really annoying exchange rate on the Australian monopoly money that it is. Next one, Norqain Neverest. 200 meter water resistant, 40mm. It's the Neverest Glacier, and it retails for about 5,300 Australian or 3,600 US dollars. It is a 70-hour power reserve, so it's a pretty cool watch, but we are starting to get up in price. So once we start getting up in price, I think we need to be a little bit more discerning about what it is. But it's got a really nice look and feel, this watch. The next one does not. The next one is up there with the Milgauss for me, in that I feel it's really ugly. But I suspect this watch, like the Milgauss, is going to divide us as watch enthusiasts and wannabe collectors. So let's have a chat about it, shall we? It's 1,000 meters water resistant, so it's a full-on dive watch. So, you know, they made a dive watch back in 2017, the H41, and it follows the brand's unique design language. It's got interconnected indices and heavy lume. It's absurdly high water rating without making the watch an absolute beast to wear. As I said, it's 1,000 meters water resistant, which is whopping. It's huge. But it's a 40mm, 13mm width, and it's in titanium, meaning that it doesn't weigh as much as how it looks. But I think it's ugly. Just putting it out there. Let me know what you think, guys. But yeah, I wouldn't wear this watch. You know how there's a lot of watches out there where you're like, yeah, I really like that watch. I think it's super nice. Sure, I might not buy it because I don't have the endless amount of money to just put whatever in the collection. Well, this is not that watch. This to me is a hard no. So I'm cool. I really want to hear what you guys have to say about it, because I just was like, no. Okay. All right, let's talk about Ball. So Ball Engineer Hydrocarbon Deep Quest Ceramic. About 5,800 Australian dollars. These watches, Ball are usually an adventurous watch, from what I can gather. But this one is definitely a diver's watch. It has a unique gas chamber. It's got lume. It makes the lume extremely bright, and it's very long lasting. Now, it's 42 millimeters. It's 15 millimeters thick, so it's definitely on the thicker side, and it's stainless steel. It comes in a number of different colors. I think it looks pretty cool, this watch, but it's going to be a hunker chunker. Like, it's not huge in terms of case diameter, but 15 mil thick is pretty thick. It's going to sit pretty high on your wrist. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's getting up there in price. Not as up there as the ones to come next. Okay, drum roll. The Rolex Submariner. That's right, we're going to talk about one of the quintessential dive watches, which is roughly $14,000 Australian retail. Not talking about fucking grey market or all that other palaver, but let's just go with, you know, if we could actually get it in a shop, it's roughly sitting between 12 and 14,000 Australian. Okay? Now, it is probably also one of the most famous dive watches of them all, and it was first released in 1953. It was made famous by Sean Connery as 007 in Diamonds Are Forever. You will know this if you've watched my Bond Watches two-parter. It's reviewed probably as one of the ultimate tool watches, and it is regarded as one of the ultimate daily beaters if you're that way inclined to wearing thousands and thousands of dollar watches a daily beater. I mean, ultimately it was kind of what it was designed for, notwithstanding, I've got hair everywhere. Now, that's what it was designed for, notwithstanding you can't wear this watch anywhere at the moment without running the risk of getting it heaved off your wrist. But that's what it was meant to be for. So let's just roll with that. Let's just live in fantasy land for a moment, shall we? Where, you know, its intended purpose of just being your daily beater is able to be achieved. And you could buy it in a store. But yeah, look, Rolex Submariner, many variations and iterations, obviously, throughout the years that are going to vary in price. But if we're just talking about the one in the shop right now, let's just go with that. Next one, which I've had many people recommend to me as an alternative to the Rolex Submariner. This watch and another one that's on the list that we'll get to shortly, but this one is the Glashutte Original CQ. Again, it's roughly, depending on, there's a window here, but let's just call it 14 grand, give or take, depending on the exact model. Okay, is it a good alternative? Yes, it's a good alternative to the Rolex Submariner. Now, as is always the case with talking about an alternative watch to a brand that you might have an itch for, it's not going to scratch that itch. But if you want a watch that doesn't have to be a Rolex, but you want something that gives you the same functionality, feel, and I don't know, je ne sais quoi, whatever that word is, as a Rolex Submariner, then this one is probably something that you should look at. It's got high-end finishing, it's slimmed down case, it's 200 meters water resistant, it's a 39.2 millimeter diameter and a 43.2 millimeter, depending on which variety and color that you want to go with, which means that it retails for anywhere between 8,000 US, so I don't know, call that just under 10 Australian, up to 12.4 in stainless steel in the US, so again 14,000 Australian. So check it out. I've checked it out and I actually really like it. I see what people are saying about it being a solid alternative to a Rolex Subby. I mean, I guess I have an itch for a Rolex Subby, so I don't think I could pick this watch as a straight alternative to it, but it's definitely a solid watch. okay guys, and I should have worn, I've had it on for all the other parts of this series, but we are talking about, yes, that is right, one of my personal favorites and one I owned, the Omega Seamaster Diver 300M. That, depending on what model you get, $10,000 to $14,000. Is it arguably the second most recognized diving watch? I think probably that's correct, and in large part that would also be due to another James Bond, Daniel Craig, and also probably to a lesser extent Pierce Brosnan, of which started the Omega trend, I guess, with the watch, with Bond. Now, the watch varies depending on the model, but generally speaking, 42 millimeters. It's got a thick rotating bezel, large helium escape valve, which I love, but divides a lot of the watch community. And it is a tool watch through and through, just like the Subby. 300 meter water resistant. It's COSC certified, and it is overall a very cool watch. You guys know I absolutely adore this watch. You know I love this watch with the rubber strap or bracelet, whatever you want to call it. It is one of my favorite watches. So, you know, I'm not really going to say a bad word about that one. Next one, not traditionally dive watches, but the IWC Aquatimer, about 9,500. It's not, as I said, it's not really at the forefront of an enthusiast's mind when it comes to dive watches, but it is a solid dive watch nonetheless. It's got a traditional dive bezel, it's got dive markings inside the crystal, it's got a compressor bezel and a stainless steel watch. It's got a clean aesthetic with a 42 millimeter dial. It's 300 meters water resistant. It comes in numerous colors, and overall it's a pretty cool watch. I'm not going to buy one. If I'm buying an IWC, it's not going to be an Aquatimer. Let's be realistic about that. I don't know. I suspect that might be, I don't know. Is that the view of you guys? Like, I feel, yeah, so many more that I could buy with the IWC. I mean, honestly, I want a Top Gun Mojave, which I'm never going to buy. It's $25,000. It's a fucking desert colored watch that, you know, might date. I don't know, but I still love it. Let's move on. The Ulysse Nardin Diver Chronometer, 11,500, 300 meters water resistant. Now, I've seen this brand around a lot, and I kind of put it in the bucket of, I don't know a lot about watches or that brand, but it looks expensive to me. Ironically, it's no more expensive than most of the watches that I own already, but there's some kind of thing about the perception of some brands to me that I'm just learning is not correct. This is one of them, poor guys. But, you know, these guys kind of turn, you know, something for adventure into a luxury item, which I think is where I get that perception of them from. So the marketing with them is worked, or has worked on me from that point of view. 44 millimeter, but it's titanium. So it makes that 44 millimeter feel so much lighter than what it is. God, I love titanium. Now, it is a luxury dive watch by look and feel, basically, and that's how it's marketed. And again, it's about 7,900 US, which goes up to about 10, 11,000 Australian, depending on which day I plug the numbers into my exchange rate calculator. All right, guys, next one, which I suspect will be somewhat controversial for some of you, but not for me. Breitling Superocean Heritage. So not the newest model, which I do really like, but when I tried on the Breitling Superocean Heritage, that watch just sung to me. It's a beautiful watch. Now, I know that some people have a very strong view on Breitling either way. I fucking love them. I've only just discovered them in the last few months. I know I've been under a rock, bear with me, but this is a great watch. All right, it's probably one of the best dive watches on the list, and it's held as a solid favorite, right? Because it's a utilitarian watch that comes with a whole raft of different options and features to suit each purchaser. I mean, that's just what Breitling seem to do, right? Here's our watch. And here is it in all the different iterations that could possibly appeal to nearly anyone who loves a watch, because we want everyone to have a watch. That's what it feels like to me with these guys. So this one in particular has a clean sandblasted texture with a polished handset, and that's what makes it pop, right? Like, you put this thing on and it looks fucking amazing. It just does. Like, Breitling just have a way of, like, you put a watch on and just go pop. I can't make the popping sound. Okay. It's a solid tool watch. It measures anywhere between 40 and 46 millimeters. It's water resistant to 200 meters, and it's from Breitling, super reputable brand. Now, Breitling is just, it's one of those ones to me. My wife loves them. She's got 2 now. Varying ones. None of the ones that to me are so obviously Breitling like. So it's not the Navitimer. Navitimer is at the top of my Breitling list for sure. Like, I feel like as a wannabe collector, I have to have that one day. The Superocean I feel could come later, but nonetheless, it's a really epic watch, so it had to go on the list. All right, let's keep going, shall we? Ah, yes, the Bremont Supermarine S2000, 8,500 Australian. Okay, it's got, you're not going to believe this, the second highest water resistance on the list at 2,000 meters. I mean, who's diving 2,000 meters? The only other one that beats that is the Rolex, and that's the Deep Sea Sea Dweller, which, I mean, listen to the name, people. So the Bremont Supermarine is water resistant 2000. Depth rating comes with a slightly larger 45 millimeter case size. Obviously it's going to be a little bit bigger, right, to get all that stuff happening in there. It's a great looking watch with a unidirectional sapphire bezel with unique design. Now, if 45 mils is too large, there's a 40 mil and a 43 mil version, but the depth rating is reduced accordingly. Check it out, guys. Again, new brand to me, revelation, I know. Just discovering their stuff. Great watches, love them. Okay, next one. We can't have a list and not have a Grand Seiko, because again, still a new brand to me. Yep, I know, but this is the SB GH289. It's 10,000 bucks. It's water resistant to 200 meters. These Japanese brands make amazing watches, very accurate, great quality. Just depends whether or not you're a Swiss-made snob or not, I reckon, at the end of the day. Of which maybe I am a little bit, because I've never really looked at these Japanese-made watches before. But I'm starting to broaden my horizons. This is a 43.4 millimeter with a depth of 200 meters. High polish headset, indices are lume-filled, super contrasting, obviously so you can see underwater. It's got a premier luxury dive feel and fit to it, which also equates with the price tag. I'd be keen to know your thoughts, guys. I don't know if I'm diving with a Grand Seiko. I don't know if I'm diving with any of these watches, to be clear. Maybe I would with the Rolex Deep Sea Sea Dweller. Tudor Pelagos. I just did a very quick review today that I've recorded on the new 39 mil. This one, released in 2012, same year as the Black Bay. It's a bit more of a diver's watch than the Black Bay, but it's, I don't know, do Pelagos kind of have the same appeal as the Black Bay? For me, no. The new one, yes. And I'll explain in that video why. But overall, I don't know. I think it's a nice watch. I think, again, it's very expensive. This one is 6,900. It's 42 millimeters, which makes it bigger than the Black Bay, but it's titanium, so it's also 40% lighter than the steel counterpart. That's also why it's that expensive, Jess, but still, it's a Tudor. Anyway, next one, Rado, because hey, I'm just feeling nostalgic a little bit. So Rado to me kind of screams early 2000s. This is the Captain Cook, 300 meter water resistant. Now, these guys kind of do a dress watch, I guess you'd say, but this one had to make it in there. It's kind of vintage with modern aesthetics. It's an attractive diver watch. It's 43 millimeters. It's a matte plasma high-tech ceramic, which is very Rado, I gotta say. Like, they have a very particular look and aesthetic, don't they? Well, at least the ones I'm thinking of. It's an 80-hour power reserve, so it's up there. That's pretty... I mean, I don't know, there's not a lot of watches that have an 80-hour power reserve, so it's definitely a weekend beater, that's for sure. Which brings me to the end of the list. We're going to head into plus $20,000 territory as the final part of the list very shortly. But again, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Please, helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Very, very grateful if you do. But more importantly, let me know your thoughts. Have I stuffed up the list? Have I missed something really obvious to you? Have I just mucked up a watch? You know, there's all this stuff that we can do in the fact check. But at the end of the day, like, I think it's a pretty comprehensive list now. It's definitely not exhaustive, but there's a lot of watches in there. I mean, there's something in there for everyone almost, right? Like, subject to me doing this final part, which is going to also tick off another few from the list that people have given me over a series of other videos. But I've already covered off on a few. The biggest one is the Sign and the Glashutte. I really hope I've said that correctly, which I agree. They look like super cool watches. The next one coming up is the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. We'll get to that next. Until next time, guys, thank you.